Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Able Readiness 1. My name is Ed Flick, and I'm the Director of the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management for the Oregon Department of Human Services. I've been with the department since the day after Labor Day 2020, and since then, the department has been working on growing the ability to respond to the needs of Oregonians impacted by disaster. Before that, I had the privilege of working at the Oregon Health Authority as a regional health preparedness liaison in Southwest Oregon. And before that, I was, after I had retired from the Army, I was the Marion County Emergency Manager for 5 years. So it's really exciting to be doing this exercise today at the Salem Airport. We always knew that it would be an important place in a future Cascadia event. Today we're going to accomplish several things. The first thing is we're going to demonstrate what mass care capabilities could look like following a major disaster. We're going to focus on the Cascadia Subduction Zone earthquake because it's clearly the most consequential of all the hazards that Oregon faces. But by being ready for Cascadia, we can be ready for literally anything else. You're going to go on a tour in a few minutes of the shelters that you see set up out on the airfield. You're going to learn about what happens in each one of them. And when you do so, I ask you to put yourself in the place of a survivor that's been evacuated and is moving through really what could be the first formal assistance that they receive. And you're going to learn about what's happening in the tent and why each step is so important to the well-being of the survivor. We're also going to be testing emergency communications between the incident command post here and various locations in Oregon. And it's really this communications part that really makes this an exercise. When disasters happen, it's important to understand what's happening on the ground and in other locations in order for the department to do its job to provide mass care. Following the tour, we'll gather back in this room and answer your questions about what's needed, why, and any other topic you'd like to discuss. I'd like to acknowledge the State Resilience Officer, Mike Harriman, who's here. You know, one of the great things that Oregon's accomplished towards preparedness was establishing in statute Mike's office. And Mike has been a tireless advocate for resilience in this state. And I'm really happy that he's here. I also want to acknowledge Fairborz Paksharesh, who's the director of the Office of the Department of Human Services, and his deputy, Lisa Wendt. Without their support, that would not be a capability for Oregon today. There's some other partners that have made this possible. You'll notice we're streaming. I'll admit, before the Omicron surge, I'd really hoped to have a larger exercise. We would have been finishing up already and had done this out in Manzanita, where there's a really engaged set of local partners, really anxious to start working on Cascadia. Really, they've been working on it for 10 years. They were happy for us to join them. And we also had plans to do this in Redmond, another place that we know is going to be really important. So for COVID precautions, we're also live streaming. So our friends at the Capital Community Media are putting this up on their YouTube site right now. And they're also going to edit this into an hour-long show. Also filming today is Cornerstone Media. They're working with us on public awareness and education videos. And we hope that the increased awareness of these videos will lead to both personal and public actions to improve preparedness for everyone in Oregon. There's also a set of great Oregon businesses represented here. And it's only with their support and with their ingenuity that we have the solutions to some of these problems. Deployed Logic, or DLX, manufactured the shelters. And having worked a lot overseas, I'll tell you that these solutions are really an international standard, not just in practice, but formally. And I encourage you to talk to the DLX team about that. Another partner, High Impact Technology, who's partnered with Oregon Corrections Enterprises to develop the surge kits you're going to see out there. And lit solutions. So as much as what you'll see in the shelters, we know that that's just the start of a process to move people towards better and better sheltering and then into recovery. And LIT, which stands for Living in Transition, has got a solution for emergency sheltering that would help people be sheltered both safely and dignity. There's also another version of that is being produced by HIT and a local partner. I have to acknowledge Marion County Emergency Management, where my heart will always be. We have some of the best volunteers in Oregon from Marion County Auxiliary Communications Unit helping us demonstrate we can talk from the coast over the hill all the way to Redmond today. And finally, the City of Salem and Salem Airport. Under Mike's leadership, there's been a series of FEMA surveys of these airfields, and we've studied how we would use them in an emergency in Cascadia. And we just took a page out of that plan, and we're just moving the ball forward, Mike. Able Readiness. Able Readiness is an exercise series that's being produced by the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management and the Department of Human Services with a whole variety of partners. This is the first one. These exercises are designed to demonstrate mass care capabilities related to a Cascadia Subduction Zone earthquake. The purpose is to support planning, testing, improvement, capability development for Oregon's Emergency Support Function 6. There's 18 emergency support functions in the plan. ODHS has a specific role, but we work with 18 ESF, 17 ESF partners. 36 state agencies have specific responsibilities, and this is our share of the task. And this exercise series will help us advance our ability in mass care in cooperation with our other agency partners. We're focused on the subduction zone earthquake and its attendant hazards, which include tsunamis, landslides, soil liquefaction, utility and transportation disruptions. We want to do this often. We want to do this and make it easier for our local partners and work on that local to state to federal interface. And really our job is always to support locally led and state supported efforts. So today we're testing ODHS's growing capability to field evacuation assembly points. The idea we're testing is the ability to advance deploy this equipment throughout the state with a special emphasis on our coastal communities and also at the airfields that will be essential to help people be moved from the coast to places where they can be sheltered. EAPs are quick deployable emergency shelter and incident command locations. They're comprised of these shelters and the associated equipment. And by design, the set out there can support 80 people for about 14 days. Now, this is not intended to be a place that people will stay long. The whole idea here, if you look across that airfield, there's a bunch of helicopters. Helicopters will be moving people from the coast after Cascadia to the valley. At some point, they will then be transitioned into fixed-wing aircraft that will move them further and into places of further safety. The location here is really about how do you receive those folks, understand their immediate needs, and organize them for movement. You'll learn more about the EAP on the tour. the CSZ, the Cascadia Subduction Zone earthquake. When I retired from the Army and came home, right after that there was this infamous New York article. Who all remembers that article? You remember? Ken Murphy, the director at the time of FEMA Region 10, now the Lincoln City Emergency Manager, I think. He was quoted as saying everything west of the I-5 is toast. And subsequent science has indicated the challenges west of I-5 are going to be significant. But that moment captured that attention of the public, and emergency managers spent a lot of time explaining what Cascadia was. And then we had a great exercise, Cascadia Rising. Well, since then, particularly the last couple of years, we've learned that Oregon communities are vulnerable to any number of hazards. And with this exercise, we're hoping to put awareness of Cascadia back into the public consciousness. There's a lot that emergency management communities learned in the last couple of years, and I'm really excited to move forward with Cascadia preparedness. So what is the earthquake going to bring? The State Resilience Officer, in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, and a lot of support from locals, I was a local when we did it, studied the effects of Cascadia on transportation systems recently and let us know in greater detail. There's going to create islands. There's going to be places that, there's an earthquake, there's tsunami, soil liquefaction. What does that mean? You know, when you're a kid at the beach and you tapped your foot on the beach, and before you know it, it wasn't sand, it was water. Well, that's going to happen, and it's going to disrupt roadways and transportation and communications. We're going to see water systems, wastewater systems, and power systems impacted. And we're going to have islands. Those are the realities we face. That's what we have to prepare for. So for now, what I want to do is ask you to put yourself in the place of the Oregonian. That's impacted. Imagine right now shaking started. It's going to go on for 3 to 5 minutes. Cascadia has struck.
As Ed described, Oregon just experienced a massive earthquake followed by a tsunami, causing widespread damage and destruction on the coastline all the way up and to the east to where we are right now in the valley. Even though it may not be as strong of a magnitude here in the valley, there was widespread damage, destruction, roadways, transportation, of course, water sources. You want me to go higher? I see. Homes, buildings destroyed. At this time, you're a survivor. What are you looking for? What do you need? What are you concerned about? Anyone? Shelter. Anything else? Family. Medical care. Excellent. Food. Clean water. Excellent. Transportation. Sanitation. Excellent. These are all correct. You're going to be looking for all these life-saving resources, and you'll be gathered together. Now, throughout the state, people are going to gather together. It may start out with just a few. It could be large, massive gatherings in some kind of evacuation point, similar to what we have here. This is an established evacuation assembly point. And as Ed mentioned earlier, an EAP. We use that acronym time and time again. You may actually hear that throughout the presentations today as well. from our featured captains that will be showing you the EAP today. Today we'll show you this established evacuation point and what it could look like. Taking a look at this and understanding that this will be locally led and operated, but state supported. Now for this purpose and for our demonstration today, we will actually have our team from the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management actually show you each one of these very important capabilities. Please make sure you ask questions. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to see. And our team is very excited to actually share with you these capabilities. When walking through the EAP, imagine yourself, like Ed mentioned before, being a survivor, or potentially being somebody that had family that went to the coast, but because you couldn't make it because of work constraints and so forth, they're out there on the coast. What do they need? What resources will they need? These are important thoughts as we go through and walk through this evacuation assembly point. We're going to take you through a registration, to a mess hall, to medical, to shower facilities, latrines, dormitories, and also you'll also end up at the command tent, where I will show you what happens behind the curtain, if you will, to get all these resources put together and to make sure that transportation is available for those that need to move on and get to a higher level of care. When you leave the command tent today, when you leave my team, you'll come out and you'll also be introduced to two additional options for longer term sheltering. So that will actually finish up that tour. We will then meet back here in this room for a Q&A session for any questions that you may actually have or the ones that you weren't able to ask. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and tell our captains, our featured captains, I want you to go ahead and move out at this time. Get set up, ready for the first group tour. While they're doing that, I want to go ahead and go over a couple things really quick. So when we go out on the actual flight area, it's very important. Number one, we cannot be wearing any hats. Also, we want to make sure that when you enter a tent, there's a little bit of a lip, a rise going to each tent. Please be very careful in going into that tent. Also, because it's a little bit damp outside, there's going to be some water tracked into the tents that have a vinyl flooring. Be very careful about slipping. Make sure that you have good footing as you walk through those tents. Taking a look at that, what I'm going to do now, and who's actually going to be providing this tour for you, is Jen Bosch, our logistics chief. Hi, Jen. She's actually waving if you can't see her. Okay, there you go. She will actually be your tour guide throughout the tents. I will actually reunite with you at the command tent to go over very important pieces of that. So that said, I'll turn the time over to Jen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll have everybody come on over here. It looks like we've got enough people that we may be doing it in 2 groups, but we're going to kind of count everybody off once we get everybody situated over in this area over here where Cheryl's raising her hands.
Hey, welcome to the registration tent. We're going to do some quick introductions. My name is Nathan Hartle. I have worked for the Oregon Department of Human Services for 6 years. I first got involved with the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management in the wildfires last year, well, in 2020, and came back recently this year, and happy to be part of this registration demonstration. Let Diane introduce yourself.
My name is Diane Meckers, and I've been a disaster responder for a little over 20 years. Been all over the country in large and small disasters, and I'm happy to be able to bring that experience to the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management.
All right, so as people leave the affected area and they arrive at an EAP, an Evacuation Assembly Point, like this is likely the first place they would go, the registration tent. This might be the first face that they see. When they show up, they may not know, is my house still there? Is my family safe? Are my neighbors safe? Are my pets okay? They'll have a lot of questions, They've just gone through a very traumatic experience. So I would ask the group, what types of things do you think they would be feeling? Or what type of mindset would they have in that moment?
Fear.
Fear, absolutely. Confusion, maybe overwhelm. So this is a place where they could initially come, and even if they aren't able to make some of those decisions about what do I need right now, or what do I need in a day, what do I need in 2 days, because they're so focused on right now, well, we can help start assess some of those needs. So there's 3 things I want you to take away from today. The first one is, what is registration in this context, and how are we going to go about it? So registration is just collecting some basic information about people, their name, contact information. Do they have any immediate needs? Do they have any access and functional needs? Maybe they lost durable medical equipment in the event. We're going to capture some basic information. We're going to do that. One of the ways is through our DLAN system, which you can see it here. It's basically a system where we can enter information about each individual that comes through, and it'll be able to be communicated and viewed on a common operating picture in our command and control tent, so that the people that are in charge can see what's happening and what the needs are. So that's what registration is and how we're going to go about that. We've got paper forms as backup, but that would ultimately go into that DLAN system. You'll learn more about DLAN later, so just want you to know that. It stands for disaster LAN. The second thing is, why is this important for survivors? So there's some seemingly fairly obvious ones, but do they need food? Do they need shelter? Do they need water? Do they have a service animal? Did they lose durable medical equipment? Do they speak a language that is not commonly spoken in the area? And do we need to arrange for interpreters and translators? We're going to be able to gather that information here. It's also important for another reason, which is, as they come in, if people were to come in and we never collect this information, and then we serve them, and then they're on their way, we don't know about where they go from that point. And if case management would be beneficial for them, we may never be able to contact them again. We might not know who those people were. So getting this information now is really important for being able to follow up with people and provide that service to help them recover. The third thing I want you to take away from this is that it's important for the decision makers, the people in the command and control tent, for a couple of reasons that I want to mention right now. One is because they're going to be able to see the information that we're putting into the system, and they'll be able to make decisions based off of that information that's going to better serve the population that's right here, to help people meet their immediate needs and to stay independent as possible for those folks that have barriers to being that may have lost their durable medical equipment or other access and functional needs supports. So the other thing too is, again, if these people came through and we never contacted or never got their information, reimbursement would be very hard to collect at a later point because we don't know who was here and there's no way to verify that these people ever came through. So it's important for all of those reasons. So I want to talk a little bit about, well, I'm not going to talk about it, but somebody would need to staff this shelter. So Diane is going to talk about one of the ways that we could support running a registration tent.
Okay. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that in any disaster response situation, the one thing that is always of short supply are trained staff to be able to actually operate either a shelter or a registration situation like this. And so one of the things that the Department of Human Services is doing is establishing the mass care response teams. And those teams are made up of Department of Human Services employees who are selected then and will be trained to perform a variety of mass care functions. That includes doing this registration information that Nate has referred to, and being able to direct people then to the services that they might need, whether that's a place to sleep, a place to get some rest, get some food, how to get their animal taken care of if that's a particular need, being able to refer them to medical services, and these folks will be trained to do that. They will also be trained to actually work in a shelter, and they may be working alongside our community local partners, such as the Red Cross may be operating a shelter, and they need some additional folks to help staff the shelter. The mass care response teams will be trained to be able to do that. And these teams are going to be located around the state. So basically anywhere there's like a Department of Human Services office is the potential for having trained staff there that can respond to a local disaster. So given that, are there any questions that anybody might have at the top of their head here about mass care teams or the registration process?
Hey,
Okay.
thank you, Nate and Diane.
Okay.
So if everyone will follow me.
Watch
and
your-
watch your step.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out today. Really appreciate your time. As you probably noted when Jen indicated that you are now in the mess hall, our mess tent. This is a multi-use facility. This isn't just for dining. This is also going to be the social hub during a temporary evacuation location. So this becomes kind of the lifeblood, a location where folks could come to gather. This would also be where briefings are done. So I'll bring your attention over here to my left-hand side. You're going to see kind of a bulletin board, essentially, for folks to post items and for notices to go up. This is where briefings would occur on a daily basis. This is also a location where folks can come to relax and unwind. As you can imagine, the stressors of the day for individuals in a situation like this, they need time to have children come and play games, have some comfort, relax, have a meal, and socialize in a location, because in other locations that's not really amenable. So this becomes the social event, and much as you can imagine, all of the meals being provided here. On the tables that you have behind you, exceptionally important items when people come in. Hydration is going to be essential and key. The other element is to provide quality nutrition. We have in the ability through the surge kits, we can feed a total number of 8 individuals over a 2-week period of time, and any mathematical combination thereof. And those are MREs, meals ready to eat. which you can imagine individuals coming in after that sense of shock, hunger is going to set in, and people are going to be pretty ravenous. They want to supply that energy for themselves, and those each have 3,000 calories, very high calorie count, right? And that's intentional. But of course, the whole goal is that people would be moving on in the pipeline, right? They would not be just consuming MREs. If they're going to remain in this location for any length of time, we would be bringing in mobile kitchens, and we've established a very extensive number of contracts with feeding vendors across the state. We've also worked very diligently to provide a number of feeding hubs that have canned foods and other non-perishable items in locations around the state. So those food supply chains, which will be disrupted, we have the capacity to bring food in from those locations across the state, right? So we can sustain that so individuals don't have to just be eating MREs constantly. Okay? So this is the location we have for that. Are there any questions that you might have? Yes, sir. For the purposes of our Able Readiness to bring you through, this would normally have 2 lines of 8 tables total with 4 chairs per table. Great question. Any other questions that you might have regarding feeding or socialization? Fantastic. Thanks so much. Take a look around. We have some really great items in the back. If you happen to see those, you perhaps took a look at the solar panels that we have in the back. Even on a cloudy day like today, even in shade, right? Normally we would be setting those up on the other side of the tent that would gain more sun, but those are already sitting at like 60% capacity, and we plugged those in just when you folks arrived. So that's able to power all of those coolers in the back so that we can keep items cold and be able to provide those for individuals coming forward. You're also going to see that in a medical supply tent as well. So a great new invention that's pretty cost effective. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, first off I want to thank you for taking your time out of this weekend to come and look at the facility and setup. Today I'm going to be showing you and talking to you a little about the 6-stall shower system. So you'll see outside here you have 2 big bladders. You have a black bladder, which is your non-potable or dirty water, and you have a 500-gallon clean water or potable that you would fill up with your clean water. So essentially, once this is filled, it goes from that hose over here to this propane water heater, which then heats the water back inside to the 6 stalls, which each stall has its own shower head. What happens to that water? There's a decon flooring in there and a big black berm you can see around the shelter. That water goes in that berm, and we have a sub pump on each side that sucks up the water and goes into the black hosing, back through the manifold, into the dirty water, and that's where it lives. Inside here, there is a divider curtain that splits the 2, so you can have families on one side, non-families on one side, or females and males, whatever your preference is. The cool thing about it, it's unique to how you want to set it up. Each stall has heat, so when the water is coming out, it's nice and warm. It's not cold. Now, if you didn't have this, it could be cold. You can run these without the water propane, but this makes it nice and warm for everybody inside of there. If you guys want to go inside, you can actually take a look inside the 6-stall shower. So inside you can see here they're split up into 3 bays. And this yellow decon flooring, and the yellow decon flooring, what that allows you to do is after the individual is done taking a shower, you can actually dry off on this wipe down, and the water goes through here and goes to the berm, and then the sub pump sucks it up and puts it in the non-potable water bladder. Is there any specific questions that you guys have? Yeah?
Let's just say you're going in there and you got dirty clothes. Are you going to give them clean clothes at the end of the cycle, or are they going to put on their stuff they came in with?
That's all going to be dependent on the person who is in charge of the shower system and the camp, because everyone will have a different plan. But that's a good question to bring up. Any other questions? Yeah.
What about handicap access?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Handicap, like wheelchairs, something for showering?
We can do a ramp to allow, because this is a self-rising berm, so we can develop a ramp in order to allow for handicap access. You can also, we have it divided into 2 shower systems right now, so it's 3 and 3 on each side, but we can take out the middle because that's just flipped in and have it, whereas it's one side is a shower, the other side could be bathrooms, so that it would be ADA accessible. We have different shower sets up just for this particular one. We were trying to maximize getting as many showers as possible out of this particular one. You could have this set up as 1 shower, you could have it set up as 6, you could have it set up with multiple sinks and toilets in there. Really, it's what is going to make sense at the time of deployment.
How many of these bags come with each of the tents? The blue ones and the black bags? One?
Each shower system comes with one bladder for each. But you only need the one, so.
It depends if you have, I mean, technically, if this is set up for a 6-stall shower, if you have it set up for 3, we could do some more bladders. The one that we brought today for this demonstration is a medium bladder distribution system and containment, but we also have larger ones. We could do 1,000 gallons, we could do more than that. And it also depends on, the logistics of how much water do you get in a week, how much are you getting pumped out.
Can those be the blue ones filled up and be moved by air?
Filled up and moved by air? That is a question I need to find out. I believe you can. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
But I don't want to say yes before I give you the right answer. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys for stopping by the shower.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, we're just gonna do
Everybody, I'm Russ Funk with High Impact Technology, and we have an airplane going over. The sewer system and the sanitation is such a critical part of this site. If you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. And so we really took great pains to realize what had to be portable and easy to move. An ADA toilet is a critical part. And then this is actually made in Donald, Oregon. Of the 9 Oregon companies that are represented here, this is one of them, and it actually has the black water dump tank capabilities like an RV does. And the idea is if you could go to an RV dump station, you would be able to dump it there. If not, you could take it somewhere where you could create a latrine system and be able to get it away from the camp. There was a lot of thinking about how this would work. As you walk around it, you'll see it's a 6-station hand wash station, 30 gallons of fresh water, and the ability to have clean. After an event happens, dysentery and other infections and things like that actually can kill more people than the event. And so having a clean shower system and a clean sanitary system is a critical part of this site, and this is why we chose these 2 items as a critical part of this. So we're proud. And then this is a 500-gallon tank that would be just a storage water, being able to bring it in and have it capable to feed whatever you needed on the camp. There's pump systems that can actually migrate the water, and so if you can bring in the public works people and bring in water, you have water for the site that's the static. If not, then you can gravity feed it in if you can. But with the generators and the pumps we have, you can actually feed in and out of it with that system. Again, Oregon companies are represented here, and I'm proud of that. Thank you. And please walk around the outside of it so you can see the rest of the
everybody can step on into the medical tent, please.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the medical tent. My name is Kevin Lindsay. I'm the Deputy Operations Chief at the Office of Resilience and Emergency Management. My background before I got here in April of last year was primarily military. I spent 10 years active duty Air Force, and the last 9 years I've been a medical planner in the Air National Guard. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this medical tent and what types of things go on in a medical tent at a shelter. But I'll just kind of open it up. I'm curious, what types of things do you think occur in this type of medical tent at a shelter? Anybody have any ideas?
You do the triage here?
Yeah. So at a typical shelter, the clinic that you're going to have at a typical shelter is going to be what I affectionately call cough drops and Band-Aids, primarily, right? What I hope to impart to you today is in a post-Cascadia environment, this tent could be a lot more important than just cough drops and Band-Aids. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through why that is. Big picture, Oregon has a post-Cascadia medical problem. And the problem can be summed up in three areas. Number one, 86% of our population lives in the affected area. Assuming everything west of the Cascades is affected to varying degrees of severity, getting more severe as you go to the coast, obviously. But 86% of our population is in that area. The other problem that we have, and I should also point out, we have about 650,000 people on the coast, and that's not even considering tourism, right? So if Cascadia were to strike on a sunny day in June, that could be a lot more. The other problem that we have is most of our medical infrastructure is in the affected area. We have 28 trauma centers west of the Cascades, and that includes both of our level 1 trauma centers, which deals with the most complex trauma. And so that's a real problem for us as well. The last piece that's going to be an issue for us is that due to infrastructure damage, Oregon's going to basically be 14 geographically separated areas after the event. And quite frankly, I think that's probably conservative. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than 14 geographically separated areas, up to 30 or more. And so there's going to be a lot of chaos after the event, and we have to do what we can to self-organize after the event occurs. Now, there are some things that are going to happen. There's a solution to this problem that we're going to face in Oregon, and it's called the aeromedical evacuation system. So this is what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine large aircraft coming in from the east, landing at our federal staging bases in Redmond and Klamath. You're also going to have large naval vessels coming in from the west, parking off the coast. And you're going to have rotary wing aircraft, helicopters, moving into the affected area and moving patients either out to those vessels or back to Redmond and Klamath to be evacuated to definitive levels of care. Now, the problem we're going to have is, how do you get somebody from point of injury to that system? Because once I get you on a helicopter, I exponentially increase the likelihood that you're going to survive. But how do I get you there? Well, it's likely going to happen at a medical shelter like this, where this is going to become a patient staging location. And a lot of really important decisions are going to be made. Mass care triage is going to happen here. And the prioritization for patient movement is going to be communicated to the command post and up to the state so that they can make decisions about getting resources out here to help evacuate injured survivors. Now, the main thing that I want to impart to you today is who's going to be in this tent. Now, the nation has a volunteer network called the Medical Reserve Corps. And Medical Reserve Corps, they include everyone from just your do-gooder who wants to help out, who's maybe good on communications or does logistics, all the way up to licensed and practicing surgeons, right? And in the state of Oregon, we organize our Medical Reserve Corps in a database called ServOrg. And these Medical Reserve Corps are going to be the key to self-organization after an event like this. They're going to descend on an evacuation assembly point like this. They're going to bring their medical go bags, which might be just supplies as simple as these over here. And when they arrive, they're going to be doing all sorts of things. They can do emergency shelter operations, like we're seeing here. Mental and behavioral health, which is really important. They can do facility surge support. So if hospitals are still standing, they can go help. They can do emergency operations and communications. They can do search and rescue. And most importantly, this last one down here,
they can do patient movement support. And that's going to be critical because in the days and maybe even weeks after CSD, federal disaster medical teams are not going to be able to get here as quickly as we think they will. And so the decisions that are being made in this tent are going to save Oregonian lives. And so we really need to think about that when we're investing. These MRCs need the material support and equipment that you're seeing here today. They also need a place in their local county and state preparedness system. We need to think about all of our volunteer organizations active in disaster as not just pools of do-gooders in the state of Oregon. They're actually going to be the ones that are saving lives after a CSD level event. That includes our Medical Reserve Corps. It also includes our community emergency response teams and others. And then finally, they need coordination and training. We need to include them in our exercises. We need to include them in our training plans. And we need to recognize that a Medical Reserve Corps volunteer might very well be the one who's making the decision on patient movement and getting that survivor what they need to survive. With that, I'll open it up. What questions do you have for me?
Not to call anybody out, but you have some MRC experts here in the audience.
Did I represent it correctly? Well, I appreciate you stopping by the medical tent. We really do have a big problem when it comes to the medical infrastructure in Oregon, but we do have the capability to self-organize and to prepare. So I'm really excited that I have this opportunity today to talk to you about that. Thanks.
I'm the head of training at Deployed Logics, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the climate control system that we have here. This particular unit that's hooked up to our medical tent is quite a powerful unit. It is able to supply 42,000 BTUs per hour of both heating and cooling. As we all know, the climate in Oregon can be rainy and cold in the morning and hot in the evening. So the ability to keep a medical tent cool or warm for any environment. An earthquake can happen at any time of year. There's no earthquake season. So being able to keep your medical facilities at a proper temperature to care for patients is imperative. This is also coupled with an insulation liner built into the shelter system, as well as what's called an air plenum, that kind of white structure that you saw with the holes in it. That allows the air to move from the HVAC efficiently out and spread out, sort of like you're ducting in your home. But the nice thing about this unit is it's extremely portable. It can be moved easily from location to location, and it's powered by a small generator. This particular generator is dual fuel. It can be powered by propane or gasoline. So in order to keep a structure cool or warm, quite a small package. You may have seen them all around the place, but we also have what's called our Atlas anchors. These are a patented system that allows you to anchor your shelter on any type of ground. So at this nice tarmac that we have here, we're not able to spike into it. So what these do is they allow us to fill them with water, sand, gravel, whatever you have on hand, in order to keep your shelter secure and the people inside of them safe. Any questions?
That generator's going to run that?
Absolutely. Yes.
How long can that generator run?
You know, I'm not positive on the exact fuel rate on this, but the nice thing with this HVAC is on startup it pulls about 27 amps. Once it cools the shelter down and just the fan kicks on, it only pulls about a half an amp. So it's a little more than an alarm clock. So it's quite efficient once you get your shelter to temperature. But the exact consumption rate I'm not positive on, but I can find that out.
You know, the last subduction zone was in January, right? So it's pretty cold. Did I miss it? Is that a heater as well?
It is a heater as well. So it will do cooling and heating 42,000 BTUs.
Questions for Joe? Okay, thanks, Drew.
Thank you all for coming.
So we're going to head this way.
Afternoon. My name is Corey Jones. I'm the Regional Emergency Coordinator for the eastern side of the mountains. So on the east side of the Cascades, my districts are everything all the way to Idaho. And a little bit about myself. I spent about 26 years in the military, finishing my time here in the Oregon National Guard. Also working with OEM directly and a few of the folks here in the crowd. So taking an opportunity to look at this tent here. This is a tent that we're calling the Isolation and Quarantine Shelter that can be used for COVID positive patients to get away from the local populace, but also think of it as like your family, right? Like Ed spoke to earlier. It's an opportunity for smaller families to get away from, you know, the local group, you know, to be able to isolate away. Families with pets, that's a big thing during disasters that are often not thought about. That you'd be surprised how many families have pets, just like myself, 2 cats, 2 dogs, right? So this tent here is just set up for a piece to be able to show you. It's 4 quads, rooms that are broken out, but basically it's a great opportunity to be able to provide that isolation away. And if it is COVID patients or COVID people, it would be separated from the rest of the tents in another location, but it's a great opportunity. Any questions? I'll pop in and look in.
The other thing to notice on this particular tent is if you notice, it looks different than some of the other tents. That white, the white insert is insulation, so that would keep it warmer in the winter.
So this is intended to house how many people?
So this one here is to, you know, house 4 right now, but you know, you could easily build another tent, you know, as we build onto the structure to make a larger tent. So some of these other tents could be built just like this tent here. This is for demonstration purposes for today, but as you can see, it's, you know, you have your privacy, right? And then if it is COVID people that have the symptoms, this is an opportunity for them to be in, you know, sheltered away from the other people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are those the actual beds?
Say again?
Are those the actual beds?
They are, yes. And so it's made for transportation, right? So be able to store it in something that can be moved, you know, by vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can get it, or by helicopters, for instance, to get into an area that, you know, that needs a shelter like this.
And I'm thinking about it because I have my mom. She's disabled. She has a backpack, so it's like the comfort.
Oh, exactly. That's
Yeah,
something
so-
that we can look into, right? As
Okay.
far as having another opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for some kind of bed like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
You're very welcome.
We're just going to move.
All right, my name is Micah. I am a Regional Emergency Coordinator for Oregon Department of Human Services, Office of Resilience and Emergency Management, and I cover Southwestern Oregon. My background is emergency management, engineering, and military, and what we're showing here is our dormitories. This is where you're going to be staying for the duration of this. Remember, this is just a stop on the journey. This is not designed to be a long-term housing solution. Everything you see from here is packaged in this surge kit. Okay, the surge kit is a collaboration produced by Oregon Corrections Enterprises. The tent goes on the outside, so this doesn't even need to be set up. It's in the pre-staged or dropped off in the location. Pull the tent off the back, get it set up, open it up, and you have supplies for 8 personnel for 14 days. Remember, this is simply a step on the journey, so it is not everything that you're used to at home. but I want you to really think about what do you need? What are some of your basic life needs during this, you know, that 14 days? Well, it's staged to move to the next location. It's going to look very different if your grandma, your 95-year-old grandma, is with you when that event happens, or if you're on vacation. So we encourage that feedback. I don't believe we've thought of everything. Look through, walk through, let us know, okay? But we have gotten to there is a refrigerator. If you're insulin dependent, if medications, there is methods for warming water, okay? If you need formula for babies, okay? Take a look at these, let us know. But picture yourself, okay? Everybody knows, even the most prepared person may need to utilize this. Think about it, walk through it, let us know. But right here, all the way down, here's your temporary home while we move along in the recovery process.
Micah, so
Yes,
one
sir.
tent on the back side of this, and one of these red boxes is for 8 people for 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike, I have a question. In terms of planning assumptions, what is the thought about how long somebody might be in these tents on average? Would it be for 14 days, or in your mind, do you have an idea of how you might? I know it's really unpredictable, but
Yeah, honestly, it's going to be situationally dependent. The planning factor is simply 2 weeks to allow us enough time to be able to continue that rescue and/or life-saving services. But spatially, you know, it depends if wildfire and this is deployed. It may only be 3-4 days. If it's a large scale in the Cascadia, you know, this may be a longer-term solution until we can.
How long does that take to set up?
There were 3 of us, about 45 to 50 minutes. And set up, take down is real close to the same time frame.
And you need a forklift to get it situated?
This one, yeah. Yeah, that's why we're talking the pre-staging in some of the island mapping, specifically in coastal communities, where we already know that will be a safe location above the tsunami zones. If these are pre-staged, we've already got a evacuation assembly point set up already.
The shelter itself only takes 2 people to set up, and you're out of the elements in about 2 minutes. So that portion of it, you can get people out, whatever weather conditions are. Another 5 minutes to set up, 5 to 10 minutes, I would say, to set up the rest of your stuff, like your insulation and your lights, your wiring, hooking up your HVAC, putting in your floors. But at least you can get people out and underneath something in literally 60 seconds, and it just takes 2 people. Whether it's strapped to this, whether it's in a hard case, but it does set up really quickly.
All right. With that, I would invite you to walk on through, and from here we'll go to command and control next.
Come on in. I was wondering if anybody was going to take a nap on the cots right there.
Good to go, Jen.
We're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, welcome to the other side of the curtain. This is where the operations happen. As you can see back here, you'll see that there's sleeping quarters for those that are working in the operations center, or what we call the command tent. This is the command tent, okay? Just kind of give you a little bit of an orientation to this tent. Of course, we have the sleeping quarters there. And then to my left, your right, we have the communications tent. And then to my right, your left, we have basically where all of our section chiefs would actually operate. That's logistics, plans. We also have situation unit leader and so forth. So very operationally in getting all the information together so that we can actually run a plan and to plan out. Important to know is this center floor right here would normally be used for operational planning as well. But for this, for our purposes today, we do not have a center portion right here. Right behind me, we have the actual operations. This is where the incident commander and also the operations chief, that's myself, Chad Knowles. I'm the operations chief. My background has basically in the last 24 years been in the military. I actually joined this unit just after the fires in 2020. Came on roughly, actually on the day of September 11th. I was one of the state active duty members of the National Guard come over to help with the wildfires. And then I was able to transition in as the operations chief for the emergency management unit here. So that is where I come from. I have about 12 years of operational experience in plans, and I actually reside in Wilsonville, Oregon. So that's where I've lived for the last 22 years. Just a little bit more about this. Now, keeping in mind, we actually have a very important task to achieve. Right now, we actually have a playbook for Cascadia. And right now, what you see here displayed is the second day of the Cascadia playbook and what mass care, which is us, would need to achieve in order to be ready. And just keeping in mind, the first one is register, notify, transport, and shelter access and functional needs population needing assistance. There's a lot of tasks here to be accomplished in a very short amount of time. So we don't have a lot of time to get together to stand this up and to actually be operational. So we need something like this that can actually be up ready to go so that we can get people to back reunification operations as well as to actually fulfill unmet needs. Now that's one of the most important things here. As we go through the registration, we actually collect some of those unmet need requests already. As you saw across the actual evacuation assembly point, a lot of different information is coming in. This is the hub where that information comes so that we can actually identify and then resource unmet needs. Now, as I said earlier, it starts out and it is a locally led and operated EAP, but it's state supported. And one of the things that's really important to know is we actually just implemented a new system called Disaster LAN. Disaster LAN is a way that we can see the whole entire operational picture and be able to have tickets run and so forth. And we'll show you that a little bit later in this briefing. But all of that is no good unless we have communications. The one thing I do want to actually start out with is all of the things that you've seen so far take contracting, and it takes a lot of effort on the front side to make sure that this is even possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over some time over to Max Seiler, and he's going to go over a little bit of that. Max?
Hi everyone. So as Chad said, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into these evacuation assembly point sites to take care of survivors. But a key piece of this as well is making sure that we have the partnerships, contracts, and agreements in place to be able to operationalize those services. In the case of a EAP during an evacuation, some services that might be critical are not only the sheltering systems themselves, but the sites where we stage them, agreements for garbage and recycling pickups, wastewater removal, and other facility services. but if you're a survivor that have had their house destroyed or damaged, it's quite possible you'll be looking at beyond that initial evacuation period for support. So we also look at that whole continuum of service, ongoing sheltering and feeding, as well as human services and social services such as disaster case managers to work directly with the client to address barriers and help them recover. Now, our unit's resources only go so far, so again, working with local community groups is key. Depending on the circumstances, we might develop agreements with local community-based organizations, nonprofits, NGOs, local governments, and other groups to be our service providers on the ground. Key to that is making sure we have culturally responsive services and, again, local organizations that really know the needs of their communities. Up until now, we've often had to get contracts in place following a disaster, so sort of scrambling to get things in place once it actually happens. But we're moving from a reactionary stance to making sure we have everything prepared ahead of time. In the emergency management world, the concept is called pre-disaster contracting. So again, we're going to be working diligently on having agreements ready to go so that when the next disaster strikes, we don't have to recreate the wheel every time. So some examples of what we're doing right now are doing essentially solicitations or an open posting on our procurement system for organizations to apply for things like sheltering, feeding, and other critical client services in the next several months. One example is right now we're doing what's called a request for applications for local community-based organizations and businesses to provide key client services like case management, resource navigation. So case managers working with clients to help them navigate finding housing, but perhaps mental health services, behavioral health services, other services specific to that client's need, as well as community outreach. So working not just client-specific, but working with the community as a whole to work on things like preparedness, capacity building, help organizations be ready for a disaster, and help bolster up that community infrastructure. We already have several providers on the ground providing services right now for our previous wildfire clients, but these contracts will also be available for future disasters as well. So with that, I really appreciate you taking the time to learn about how we're really trying to set the foundations to be able to help survivors recover from a disaster. What questions do you all have? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate that. Hey, and as you remember seeing in your tour, you may have seen some signs on the outside of these tents. They are in English at this time, of course. However, they're the universal symbols for what the tents are also very important. Understanding that we may have a variety of language represented here. Those type of translated services are also part of the contracting that Max also detailed. That said, just want to tell you that this is a local operated event. And what happens is, in a local event, whether it's stakeholders like American Red Cross, local government, also we're looking at any volunteers and so forth, that would actually be able to put this together and actually operate. In the event that they cannot get that information or get that unmet need solved here locally, they would need to actually reach out to county in order to actually see if they can do that and help them out. That mechanism, and we talked about that before, was disaster land, to be able to communicate that directly in real time. In the event that the county cannot actually fulfill those unmet needs, then it moves up to the state. And that's how that process works. Now, the interesting thing about that is that communication is absolutely key. And in an event like this, when communication systems are disrupted, it's very important to have a self-sustaining means of communication. And that's really the backbone here. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn some time over to Ruben to go over some of the aspects of the communication that would actually be supporting this evacuation assembly point.
Thanks, Chad. Hello, everyone. My name is Ruben Silva, and I'm the communications integrator for the Office of Resiliency and Emergency Management. My communicational background comes from the military. I spent about 10 years in the military in total. Majority of that was dealing with communications. So what I want to talk to you a little bit about today is the 3 topics of communications, right? And we've kind of already hit on it with the degradation of critical infrastructure with cell phones and the internet, right? That everybody uses as their primary means right now. But when disaster strikes and that all goes away, right? How are we going to communicate and how are we going to conduct operations? So with that, our team has been developing what's called a communicational PACE plan. PACE stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency Means of Communication. So it's a layered system that you can use in your daily lives as well. So it's not just for our purposes by any means. So with that, our primary means of communication, one of them that's going to be, of course, will be internet if that's available. However, we do have what is called a SAT runner, but basically that is a satellite. It is positioned outside. It's a satellite that points 22,000 miles into the sky, brings that internet back into the system, and it provides a Wi-Fi hotspot for a camp to use, right? So we can get back up and conduct communications efficiently. But there's other means of communications like satellite phones as well. But a very tried and true method across the nation, quite honestly, is the amateur radio community. So they've been helping state agencies, right, for quite some time now. There's various case studies that you can look up and you can find. So to my left here, what we're conducting is a small communicational exercise right now. I have the Marion County. We'll wait. It's a good pause. So right now I have the Marion County Aries team. Right now we're conducting a communicational exercise with the Emergency Volunteer Corps in Halland Bay in Manzanita through radio communications only, right? So an antenna, a radio, and a computer. That's all we need. So right now EVCMB is communicating with us, and we're forwarding that information to the Deschutes County on the other side of the mountains there, all through radio traffic, which is going to be real critical post-disaster, right? So with that being said, some of the objectives as we look towards the future is to work with these volunteer groups in these various counties all across the state and develop those relationships now so that post-disaster, right, we can get back online and just conduct operations and provide those critical mass care resources to those who are going to need it the most. So with that being said, what questions do you all have? Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
The equipment belongs to the volunteer organization from Marion County.
So this right now I have a mixture actually because I've been trying to work with those communities. So straight ahead is the Columbia Pod Renter. So Columbia County graciously loaned us that, and then this the box here left you see here, that's actually OEMs. That's their kit that they have and they let us borrow for the demonstration. Okay. So as well as a mixture of Marion County stuff. So great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate that. And I actually did indicate that there was the DLAN demonstration, but I do want to actually focus real quick. Here, a board. This is a board where we talked about this being a temporary location, right? Imagine if yourself, you're down on vacation in the coast, and all of a sudden, Cascadia Subduction Zone hits, right? Now you don't live there, and you need to get out, or you have a medical need to move out. So what we'd be tracking here as well is any flights that would be coming in or moving out of that location as well, to include any commodities or any resources that we'd be ordering. So that's very important to know. But how do we track all that? How do we actually get that all in one frame? Well, that's where we come into with DLAN, disaster LAN. Now I'm going to go ahead and have Rochelle go over some of the key pieces of the DLAN system and what it is. So if you want to come on in a little bit and huddle around so you can see the the screen, that would be great. Go ahead, Rochelle.
We're good? All right, hello. My name is Rochelle Lambert, and I am with the Systems Integration team. I am the Operations Systems Integrator. I have over 8 years of emergency management experience as an emergency manager, a licensed acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist, volunteer with the Medical Reserve Corps, as well as emergency management assistance compact team leader and disaster behavioral health practitioner. Following the 2020 wildfires, the governor's office directed our team to establish an Emergency Support Function 6, or ESF6 Mass Care Common Operating Picture. That led our team to partnering with Buffalo Computer Graphics to develop our virtual Emergency Operations Center, known as Disaster LAN, or DLAN. For 19 years, Buffalo Computer Graphics has helped teams throughout the entire United States and Canada to prepare for, respond to, and report on disasters using their incident management software. Buffalo Computer Graphics is such a dedicated partner for us. They're so dedicated, in fact, that they supported us with a recent mission in which we were helping with hospital decompression during the Omicron surge. And they even put a project to the side of managing the Super Bowl as they helped us. So pretty awesome vendor and pretty awesome partner that we have there. So we are preparing for a disaster so large in scope that we have sought the use of DLAN for a variety of reasons. But before I go over some of DLAN's features, I first want to highlight that DLAN can be used independent of the state of our infrastructure and still maintain a very safe and secure system. Even though our team has a solution for cell, internet, and satellite connectivity when Oregon's infrastructure is down, we can still stand up our virtual emergency operations center anywhere in the state, regardless of connectivity. We even have the ability for our field staff to use DLAN through a mobile responder or through a mobile app known as Mobile Responder. Now let's talk about some of DLAN's features. Oh, I apologize. While everything went to sleep, now I've got to log back in. Sorry about that. All right, so the first thing that I want to highlight about DLAN is that we can assign tasks and track the status using our automated workflows and our color-coded statuses and priorities. So we have this ticket manager section that tracks all of that information. And the next thing that I want to talk about is that DLAN offers improved planning and decision-making by pulling critical data from a variety of sources onto status boards and maps, providing visual situational awareness. So here we have a weather map that is happening live right now. Another thing that DLAN offers is that there's a variety of features in which we can match resource requests, and we can track the status and location of our deployed assets, as well as maintaining critical records. Got all of these features down here on the bottom, which support all of that. In addition to all of those features, DLAN also has robust reporting mechanisms in which we can provide custom reports that generate full chronological after-action reports. In addition to custom reporting, we can also create custom workflows, forms, status boards, and templates without doing any constant programming. Our team even has the ability to allow access to our external partners into some of DLAN's features, which allows for the sharing of information with just the click of a button. We have also partnered with Buffalo Computer Graphics as the first American client in the development of the Enhanced Shelter module. This module is a specially designed software system that can be used for survivor registration, tracking of shelter sites, as well as support with family reunification. So thank you for joining me on the tour of Disaster Land. What questions may you have?
Rebecca, are any other state agencies, counties, or tribes using this actively right now?
To our knowledge, nobody else in Oregon is using DLAN. Great. Thank you very much for joining me. enjoy the rest of your tour.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of in the middle of the whole group here now. So yes, as far as that's a great question. This is something we'd like to actually go ahead and get the licenses out to all of our contributors and stakeholders and get the training done, because the training's really important. For any of these capabilities that we see here today, the training's going to have to be part of that equation. And so that's one of the big objectives that we have, is to not only get the capabilities, but to train it so that it is effective day one of an incident. And keeping in mind, it's not just Cascadia. We have a lot of other things that happen in the state of Oregon that we could use these type of facilities for. So it's very important that we go ahead and make sure that we have the right teams trained, local stakeholders, and make sure that they're coordinated so that we know what we're doing, that they know what they're doing when the time comes. It's very important that. That said, what questions do you have of this command post?
Does all the audio-visual equipment come in with the tent, or is it separate?
So all of the electricity, the lights, the screens, the pods, the tripods,
Okay.
those are all part of the kit.
Okay.
And the tables and chairs.
Oh.
The other equipment is ours that we brought in.
Okay. Thank you.
So basically what you see here, other than of course what local jurisdictions will need to add to make it theirs, will actually need to be added to. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. Any other questions? Kind of standing in front of people here. Okay.
So thank you, Chad, Ruben, Rochelle, Max. We really appreciate that. If everyone wants to follow me out the other side of this door, we'll go on to our next stop.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Hello again, everybody. This is actually called a compact livable, and it's being made in West Salem. And we actually are making homeless shelters for Salem right now, and these are under production. The key thing is this is on skids, and the ability to pick these up with a forklift and move them anywhere you want. That's part of the design. Conventional building materials all the way through, and so if you ever have to do a repair, it's Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get everything that's in this shelter. Has vinyl plank flooring, and what that does is in a homeless shelter or a emergency environment, if you have to do a deep clean, you don't impact the floor with that, so it works that way. 110 volt, 20 amp service, so you can actually put the HVAC system in it. So for when it's 117 degrees out or it's 17 degrees out, you have the ability to deal with that. It has a egress window out the back, and it has fire CO2 alarms that's hardwired into it. The State Fire Marshal said outswing door, it's an ADA door, and an egress window, fire extinguisher, and the CO2 the fire team is happy with that. We have had to meet the 110 mile an hour wind load. So the anchoring system is in the corner. There's an anchoring system that, depending on what surface it's being mounted on, and it has to meet a 25 pound per square foot snow load, which is basically 4 feet of snow. And so all the engineering was done with that in mind to meet this, because you don't know where this would be deployed. You could put it anywhere in the state and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Right now as a homeless shelter, we're putting 2 bunks in it, but everything on the inside can be rearranged. So if you had a small family, you could put bunk beds in it, could do different things like that. So that's, for me, the simplicity of this is really a critical thing, and the ability to pick it up. Any public works departments has forklifts and flatbeds. You can pick this up and move it anywhere you need. Some of the thinking is, as the AEP is engaged, stabilize the patient, get them to where it's a little more stable, and then have the ability to have a little more robust sheltering system, and then that gives time to be able to transition into the final steps that way. So I'm proud to say these are made in Oregon, made in West Salem. We went to a digital lock because every time you lose a key, it's $100. And so with an ADA door, you can't have round handles, you have to have flat handles. And an ADA door requires a low and a high peephole, because if someone's in a wheelchair, you can actually look through it. And then an ADA ramp will be created if we need it. Every inch of height is a foot of throw at a ramp. So we're about 4 inches. I would need a 4-foot ramp to make that part of it. Metal roof, and it's really a robust little structure. We just hold it over on a flatbed trailer to get it here. Any questions? I have not been asked that. We have civil engineers that can actually do the calcs on that, and I can put slings that will come all the way from the bottom, anchor points that can come all the way up. So like the red surge kit in the back, we actually are working on that same exact question, and we believe that both of these could be airlifted if we need to. It's all based on how you have your mounting system. It weighs about 2,200 pounds.
What's the cost of the unit?
Right now, it's about $5,900 plus or minus. If we go into quantity, then I get to go to the manufacturers of the windows and the doors and the 2x4s and create a request for something of that magnitude. But Salem is buying them for $5,900 right now, as it is. And it's called a compact livable. That's the idea. Just simple, clean, and everything started when we were talking with the homeless shelter program. A robust door that locks is what the whole program started from. The ability to feel safe when you're sleeping is a critical part of that, and so that's why we started with a really robust door and a really robust locking system.
What's your production time?
One a day right now, and I'm the specifier, and I'm the one that builds the machine on this, so if we needed to scale, I know exactly how to scale this because I already scaled it once. Well, we can scale to whatever we need to based on the time. And there's a lot of manufacturing horsepower around here. And I want Salem and this area to be the micro shelter capital of the universe. That's my goal with this program.
Any other questions for Ron? Okay, so we're just going to move a few steps this direction. And here we're going to learn about the lit solution.
Thanks, Jen. Hello, everybody. My name is Wayne Watson. I'm with our parent company, Lit Workshop, which started a division called Lit Solutions, which stands for Living in Transition. What we have is our version of what we call an emergency shelter, okay, for lack of better terms. We are a large-scale manufacturer engineering firm in Portland. We are sitting at about 300,000 square feet. Our day-by-day job is not this, but we took the engineering and basically our production fabrication teams and put something to work to come up with something. We took a different approach. Again, we're at the tail end when you finally move out of the temporaries. Ours are more of the permanent. In ours, we use a aluminum composite material on the outside. It has 3 inches of rigid insulation in the walls, which gives us an R13 wall value. We use 5 inches in the ceiling, which gives us an R21.
Ours are heated and cooled with a 5,000 BTU heater, a full air conditioning system. It has a 125 30 amp system inside that we'll open the door and show you to. Ours are unique in that it is a common bolt system all the way around. It allows the panels to come apart and go together very, very quickly and very easily. Two people that have put these together regularly can put one together in less than 30 minutes. And what's unique is what we did was design ours and engineer it so that it could grow and morph very, very quickly. So within a span of minutes, the roof panel disconnects, the side panel disconnects, and you can turn this into 2-pod, 3-pod, 4-pod, and keep going. We've also designed them so that they sit on a jack screw system. It was specifically designed to meet the seismic requirements in Los Angeles. As a result of that, the system can be leveled over 12 inches of any terrain and can be staked in parking lots or on grounds and whatnot. We don't use any steel. It's all aluminum and or stainless. As a result of that, they are impervious to rust. The interior materials, I'll open the door. The interior material is a proprietary material that will not mold or rot. So we've taken away all the rust issues, any mold issues, anything like that. Again, all of the LED lights are incorporated inside of it. It comes with a bed that's collapsible. You can take a peek inside for all the stuff like that. Every part on it, our snow loads are well in excess of probably about 250 pounds per square foot. It's very heavily engineered. So again, it was designed, it could be airlifted, it could be dropped in parts, it can be moved by a forklift. And again, this was meant for long term, as someone who's now moved out of this into a bigger area and needs something that is now going to be very defensible for a long period of time. Very much like the same unit, there's local requirements and national jurisdiction requirements that have locks, that have air conditioning, all the setbacks. We've developed ramps for these things. We have these in about 6 different states right now that are going up, and most of that area is extremely cold, so they've done very, very well. The insulation value is very, very, very good, so it's made it exceptionally good in the colder and the warmer areas. The byproduct of that is the fact that it actually reduces a significant amount of ambient noise, okay? You can feel free to take a look inside. Specifically on the lower, and it's specifically designed around the people who are in this sort of situation for a very quick in and out. They don't have to get up. They can release the 2 levers and they can walk right out the back. We're powered by a simple cord in the back. This has also been developed so that it can be, if you look inside, it's got a wet fire suppressant system. It's not operable, but it's simple plug and play that goes in there. So now, because of the insulation value, the city of Portland's looked at this very heavily, the fire marshal and the building inspectors. They can actually be built on and continue, so they can actually reduce the amount of space we need and still maintain the usage for the people.
Hey, like when you buy something from IKEA, they give you like some basic tools. Does this come with some basic tools to put it together? Okay.
There's only one tool. It's a socket head, 3/8 socket head, and that's all you need. There is a tool that tightens the jack screw that does come with it. Other than that, most of the time this is put into communities where there's more than one. So we put in the installation. We fly around and do the installation on them. Any questions?
Be put on a pallet and you can airdrop them?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct. These are about 16,600. And the idea behind this is that this is your beginning, so you're able to grow very, very quickly. So a family of 4 could turn this into 2 or 3 pods in the span of an hour, put in beds, it rises up, and then it accepts a wet bathroom system, shower, toilet, sink, and has a miniature kitchen in it. So it can grow very, very quickly, depending on needs.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Everybody wants to follow us back into the office area. We can do a question and answer.
get started with the live stream. Hey, good afternoon. We're back, and appreciate everybody going through and looking at the sites. And I hope that the presenters were provided relevant information to you to help understand how each little piece of that contributes to a person's well-being as we try and move people towards some stabilization. So at this point, we're back live streaming, and I'd entertain any questions people have that we could dig into it a little more.
How long do you expect conventional communications to be down after something like Cascadia?
I think not to put you on the spot, Mike, but what do you think? I mean, we got some information on that from the RRAP.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, the Oregon Resiliency Plan turns 8 years old this month. You know, it was presented in 2013 to the legislative body, and it identified under the communications section, you know, coastal, valley, and other areas, rural communications could be down for months, because the power system's down and other things. So technology like this, as I was telling your director, 15 years ago we had 13 big satellite trailers up and down the valley and on the coast, and they were an albatross. You know, they became so heavily maintenance dependent with software systems having to be upgraded. The hospital staffs just got tired of it. We ended up surplusing them out. So this technology here, I imagine it'll change in the next 3 years, and it'll even be smaller. So the more we can be dependent upon other backup systems like the areas, the amateur radios, and the satellite stuff, will just, it won't be seamless, but it'll be the best way to get information. But I'd say you're looking at months. You know, if you're living on the coast, it could be years before you see a telephone line coming back in for the old-fashioned landlines. It'll be a very long time.
And I would add that the next regional resilience assessment is going to focus on telecommunications.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're doing our kickoff meeting next Thursday in the afternoon, online and also in person at the State's Coordination Center.
One of the things that makes the satellite communication system particularly valuable is nationwide there's a system supported by AT&T called FirstNet, and that's a public safety communications network that was really built with the intention of addressing this communication challenge. It's the same in every after-action review from every disaster, small to large, and so by partnering with FirstNet, we're really hoping that we'll see this evolve and grow, and that it's got industry support behind it. Any other questions? I'll start calling on people if there's none. Yes, ma'am.
How are we preparing people, like the residents here, that we're going to be overcrowded, like I live here in Salem? So how are we getting, just kind of like with the chaos, so much people coming into this side of town?
I really appreciate the question. I spent a lot of my time when I was the county emergency manager trying to spread the word and raise public awareness. I think that one of the key pieces of mass care actually is providing information, and we partner with other emergency support functions to get accurate information out to the public. And I really believe that, from my own experience, one of the best ways to do that is through social networks. And I don't mean social media, I mean social networks, particularly in disaster where communication is disrupted. Getting information out to communities that's accurate is really the first priority. One of the things that you saw in the tent was the Community Information Board. And I know that local jurisdictions have plans to use non-technical means like that to spread the word. It's something that we really learned from the way that wildland fire communities, response communities work, that community information piece. And I think that's in particular important to get information out through the faith community, through neighborhood organizations, and it really goes to why we put so much priority of working with community-based organizations, so that we have those relationships in place ahead of time, and that we can make sure that information goes out from people who have a credible voice, and in a way that's accessible to the whole community, because we know that different members of the community like to receive information in different ways. So the best possible way is from a trusted person who they know, and that we're really putting out information that is accurate, timely, and accessible.
What do you think would have been different in the wildland fire response had you had some of these systems and tools in place?
It's really a wonderful question, and we've done a lot of discussion with counties looking at the space sort of between the evacuation and the shelter effort. And in our partnership with counties, the American Red Cross and other partners, we really see that there's a gap there. And this kind of capability, this evacuation assistance task force, is really intended to fill that gap. It's the space that the Red Cross and the county said was the first priority they had for state assistance. So by having teams and equipment available in the communities, we're going to be able to receive people, understand their immediate needs, and reconnect them with services much quicker. You know, a lot of people don't approach formal sheltering. And I have a colleague from the American Red Cross here. We need to make sure that regardless of if you need shelter or you just need information, that there's somebody there who can help to provide it. And so this is a state capability that local jurisdictions could request, that we would then set up rapidly. And as we build these mass care response teams and other elements of this, we'll really be in a better position to assist folks in that immediate space, particularly because during the wildfires, what we saw is people left their communities and went to other communities, and they weren't really, they were unknown, right? And so connecting with folks and helping them understand what's going on and immediately connecting with services, I think, is a key part, because we want to work in partnership with community-based organizations and the Red Cross to get people to security, and this spot is a place that we can begin to do that. We got more folks coming in. We're still live streaming until 3 o'clock. Any other questions? That's a great question. I mean, in emergency management, we talk about the ladder of assistance. And in the operations tent, Chad talked about how all responses begin locally, and there's a system where it's escalated, and it's escalated. And so FEMA in Cascadia will arrive. Although as a county emergency manager, I always felt that we can't just sit out and say that help's going to come from somewhere else. You know, the initial response to Cascadia is going to have to be local, and it will build. And we've seen how responsive FEMA can be to come in and bring wonderful responses, but they will always be reinforcing local response. And what we need to do is take our responsibility for our share of the task at the state local level. And then, you know, FEMA is going to be stretched thin. The Cascadia Subduction Zone earthquake is going to affect so much of the western United States that we have to be the agents of our own response initially. And then that help will come. And having been part of international response overseas, I'll tell you, it's amazing when it arrives. But it takes a while to get here. Yes, ma'am.
Following that up, Coordinating with Washington State.
Through exercises like Cascadia Rising, we have the opportunity to do that. There's various communication mechanisms, and really that coordination begins really with our partners at the Oregon Office of Emergency Management that are working state to state. We do have colleagues in the mass care community, and I also want to highlight again how important the Red Cross is in all of this, right? Because that Red Cross response does begin locally and scales just all the way up, just like through state and federal. And so we've got some wonderful colleagues from the Red Cross who are planning at the regional level, who actually work as a great leveling tool because they work with us and they work with Washington. And so they're equivalent to the FEMA Region 10. It's just so important, right, that we're finding connections at all levels. That coordination extends beyond mass care to health care and other cooperation, in particular in evacuations, because we see people crossing state lines. And so we have to work with Washington, we need to work with California, and I think that it's really this exercise framework that gives us the chance to highlight those mechanisms. I will say we had help come from across the United States during the 2020 wildfires, and that was essential. So I'm seeing that we're getting close to time. Do we have time for one more question? No? All right. Well, I'll just wrap it up then. For everybody that's on the live stream, I really appreciate you tuning in. I really hope that the takeaway is that there's gaps in preparedness. This is the start of what I hope will be a pathway towards more preparedness. As an emergency manager, I really think that there's hazards across the country. This is ours, but it is achievable. Preparedness can be achievable. We see our local partners being more prepared. I wish we could have got to Manzanita in this series. There's amazing work that's being done locally. And then the 36 state agencies that have a share of the state response all need to weigh in and lean in, and we can be more prepared. And being more prepared for Cascadia is going to help us to respond as effectively as we can. And finally, the last word is, we always have to keep equity in mind. We got to look for those populations that are disproportionately impacted, and always think about them and be in their shoes and figure out how can we be as good as we need to be to support the folks that are impacted the most. And I appreciate everybody participating. Thank you.